Building a DIY glider is actually very easy. If you follow this video step by step, you too can create one that is so fun to build and flies so smooth in the air. All you're gonna need are foam board and some of your handy dandy skills, and you're good to go. So without further ado, get your materials in order and let's begin. So I'm gonna be using these plans that are actually from FliteTest.com. They are available in the description box, so definitely get these in your hand, print them out, and the first thing we're gonna do is cut out the margin, which are these dashed lines. You can see it's the same case for all the single pages that you're gonna print. I'm now gonna take my X-Acto knife and align my ruler with the dashed lines and strike through the paper. You can also use a pair of scissors to cut out these margins. Pay close attention to the tile size, so sort them by A1, 2, 3, and then 4, so you can find them in the top left corner. FliteTest has done an excellent job with these plans. They also have a tutorial in their channel on how to build this glider, so I'm just showing you my method of how to do it. So all you have to do is sort out these papers and align them together, eyeball it, or you can even follow that little center line, align the papers, use a piece of tape, and connect these plans together. Then you can find this long blueprint. Once you've prepared the tiles, you will have another one for the wing as well, as you can see in this case. Just remember that black line is 100% cut through, so you will notice some colors in these plans. The dark ones, the black ones, are essentially strike through. So use your X-Acto knife or again a pair of scissors to cut out these plans. Don't forget about these dihedral gauges as well. We will also remove these relief cuts from the vertical stabilizer and the horizontal stabilizer. All you have to do is just strike the paper through and you have these tabs opened up. Here we have our fuselage of the glider. We also have these black lines in the middle, so don't forget to cut them as well. Of course, we're gonna need some foam board for this project. I've taken Adams Plastics foam board. I think this is an excellent material because of the paper cover. We will find that super handy, as you'll see sometime later. I'm using a glue stick to put really small amounts of glue onto the plan and sticking that plan on top of the foam board. You don't want to go crazy with this glue because we will be reusing these plans if needed, so you don't want to ruin the plans, because if you use too much glue, you're going to essentially wetten it and it's going to destroy it. So essentially put in all the plans on top of the foam board and we're ready to cut them out. I just find it super helpful to use a super sharp knife, so definitely use fresh knives whenever you see that the blade is dulling out. And once you strike the X-Acto knife all the way across the borders, I also find it helpful to kind of flip the board over and also strike it from the other side, so that way your board will be clean cutted instead of you pulling the pieces out and kind of preserving the foam board as well. So we have our wing complete. Let's move on to the fuselage. So I've also cut out the fuselage. They're the little tabs. So once again, strike your knife all the way through the tabs. From the other side, you can poke them out, and just it's gonna take a while. It's quite a lot of cutting, but especially if it's your first FliteTest build, it will take a while. But this process is so much fun. We're now moving on to the red lines. So the red dashed lines are 50% cut. So we're also gonna use our X-Acto knife to cut these plans out, but the only difference is we're not gonna cut out all the way through. First, as you can see, I am only creating some trace marks because I will be taking this paper out from the board, and that's just gonna help me to create the lines later on. So these four crosses are actually representing the wing like we can poke in some barbecue sticks to attach the wing, but in this case, I'm just gonna directly glue the wing onto the fuselage, so that won't be necessary. So once again, red lines are 50% cut, so align the ruler with the reference marks that you just create, and then strike your X-Acto knife 50% of the way so you're not actually cutting down the other side of the foam. This will allow us to fold the foam over and do the next steps. We're gonna remove that little gap. If you find that the foam is actually not trying to fold over, you can always strike your knife once again to clear out any debris. As you can see, the other side is actually a paper cover, so we're actually able to just peel the foam over and we'll be left with that beautiful paper cover. If you don't have a foam that has a paper cover, you can take any other foam, you can even apply a layer of tape on the other side, and that's gonna also let you achieve the same outcome. So here we have a beautiful channel that's going to help us to fold over. We're going to do the exact same principle on the middle of the fuselage. This is actually the base. Also guys, if you're finding any value in this video so far, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe for more related content. I appreciate you so much. I'm now going to take a barbecue stick, and also in the plans you will find some blue lines and they're representing creases. So in this area I'm just striking my barbecue stick, so that's going to allow me to curl this piece over. Moving on to the vertical and horizontal stabilizer, I'm doing the same thing by leaving some marks on top of the foam so that I can take off the plan, the paper plan, and then once again, this is a red mark. In your plan, you will find probably a green or a blue mark. And once again, just creating a 50% score cut and folding the piece over. You don't really have to do this, but you definitely would want to because your flight will not exactly be 100% straight. So in this case, I'm doing a single bevel cut, so I'm striking my knife 45-degree angle, so that's gonna help us to kind of create a beautiful fold on either side of the foam. Do the exact same step for the fin, the tail. You could also call it the horizontal stabilizer. We're again doing a single bevel. This is where a sharp knife is so critical. You can also use a sandpaper to make this channel. Always feel free to come back and clean off any extra foam that's been bothering you. Now let's move on to the wing, the fun part. We will do a full cut on these two, a 50% cut on that, and once again a 50% crease mark on these two channels. I'm just creating a little hole for these two. These are going to help us to find the center of gravity. And I'm also going to take a barbecue skewer to poke those later on. Once you've created your reference marks, you can take off this plan and you can see it comes out in a beautiful clean state. You can reuse these plans on future glider builds, and it's a great way to recycle paper, eh? So I'm just scoring along very thin lines on this area of the foam board. This is going to help us create the airfoil shape on top of the wing. And again, I'm using a barbecue stick to create some more space, so that's going to help us create this beautiful airfoil curve. Now create a double bevel on this center portion of the wing. So we're first going to create a little fold just like so, and we're now going to create single bevel on both sides of the foam So it's essentially a double bevel. Be super patient with this step because you do not want to slice out the other side of the foam. So I'm just gonna create a double bevel. So bringing the foam closer to me and doing what we did with the vertical and the horizontal stabilizer, create a single bevel on this side of the foam. Once we have that single bevel, flip the wing over and do another bevel cut on the opposite side. So we have double bevel, sort of acting like a V shape, as you can see. This is essentially creating some space for our wings to fold over. I'm now gonna use a layer of tape on this side of the foam. Even if you have no tiers, it's always a good idea to put in a layer of tape because it's also gonna make your wing a lot more sturdier. Once again, creating this 50% score cut and creating this channel right here, taking off the foam, and we're now going to perform a C-fold. That's what FliteTest says. And C-fold is just a complete fold over of the foam, so it acts like a C. We're now going to use our hot glue, but we want to avoid these two areas because once we fold over, we also want to do a polyhedral angle, so apply hot glue by avoiding those two regions. Once you apply the hot glue, fold the foam over. Be very cautious if your hot glue is super hot. Let's now move on to folding the entire foam. You don't want to do this in one go, sort of in a rocking motion. I'm now going to apply a very thin bead of glue on those two crease lines. But before I do that, I got to make sure that you don't put any glue on here as well as on that line because those are going to create the polyhedral angle. So don't have to be super crazy with the hot glue. Apply a super thin bead of glue. Once you've applied the glue, take a scrap piece of foam and smear out the excess hot glue. This not only removes any excess glue, but also strengthens the foam a lot further. Now you want to hold the wing in this position and let the curvature form. As you can see, we have this beautiful curve. We're going to avoid these regions and we're going to apply some more hot glue to fold the wing over. So we're going to apply hot glue in the center, avoiding this region and that region. This is the step where your hot glue needs to be very hot and you need to have sufficient amount of hot glue, so be sure to load it up. Hold this wing for around 45 seconds to a minute, then fold the wing over, and we can also further reinforce the wing with some more hot glue, particularly towards these corners because they're the most vulnerable to open up. Now take a barbecue stick or a X-Acto knife and create some relief in these little lines. This is going to help us establish the polyhedral angle. Remember the gauge we were talking about? We're now going to use that gauge to put it under the wing. That's going to help us assist with the amount of angle that the wing's going to have. Now apply a generous portion of hot glue inside the channel, fold the wing over, put in the gauge underneath, and we want to smear off the excess glue with a scrap piece of foam. Apply the same technique on the other side of the wing. This is an optional step, but it's encouraged, so glue in some popsicle sticks on the top portion of the wing. This is going to help you catch the rubber bands if you do decide to attach the wing using some rubber bands. But in my case, I will directly glue it on the fuselage. Speaking of the fuselage, that's the only thing that's remaining. We will now confirm a B-fold on this fuselage. We say it a B-fold because it's where these two side plates are actually sticking beside the fuselage piece. So before we stick it on, we have these two doublers. These doublers essentially strengthen your fuselage, and we're gonna just put in a very thin layer of glue and put in the doublers. We have those reference marks in the planner, so you will know exactly where to glue these doublers. We're now gonna favor most of our glue on this side and that side, and it's a B-fold, so these side plates of the fuselage will actually stick beside the middle piece rather than on top. To make sure your fuselage is stuck nicely and square, you can always use this gauge piece that we have laying around and make sure that your fuselage is actually square. We have not applied any glue on this part of the fuselage, so that's exactly what we're gonna do now. And now fold the foam over, but you don't want to use your hand to actually press against it. You want to use the table as your friend, just as how Josh Bixler says from FliteTest. That's gonna help you achieve a very clean fold and no messy. We're gonna do the same thing on the top part of the fuselage, so applying glue on these two channels, the sides of these plates. You don't have to go crazy with the glue. That's where this paper film really helps out. And always make sure to use the table as your friend to press against. We're now gonna fold the nose. So we have created these relief marks that actually sit nice and flush with the nose of the fuselage, and they fold so beautifully well. I'm first gonna apply a bit of glue on the very top tip and then fold them over. So this is just gonna apply a very clean edge when we fold the nose over for the nose weight. You can do this entirely in one step, but you can always take your time and do one step at a time. So fold over the base, use the table as your friend to rock over and stick the glue really well in place. We're gonna avoid the top two blocks because those are the blocks that are gonna fold over and allow you to access the nose weight. Now let's attach the vertical stabilizer to the horizontal stabilizer, and all you have to do is just let them sit in between these tabs, apply glue on that area and this area, and just stick on the vertical stabilizer to the horizontal stabilizer. Good idea to actually pinch these tabs. That's going to help you to make sure that you place the tail nicely and securely without having to crush the foam. We're almost done with the glider, guys. There's just one more step, that is to stick the wing onto the fuselage. Again, you can actually use rubber bands to stick the wing onto the fuselage, but in my case, I'm just doing a fixed wing glider, so just gonna attach it directly. Don't have to worry about that anymore. We're actually almost done with the glider. I say almost because we do have to balance our plane. So at this point, it is super tail heavy because we haven't added any nose weight to the plane. So this is where we're gonna open up this hatch. That's where the double bevels also help us to create that latch. I'm using some metallic, what do you call these, nuts? Some heavy nuts, and I think you call them washers, my bad. So I'm gonna use a bunch of metal washers, glue them in place, stick it to the very top part of the nose, and that should give me sufficient nose weight to balance the plane. We will use these two holes underneath the wing to measure the center of gravity. All you want is a touch nose heavy or a fully balanced plane. And this day had to be a super windy day, and the first flight suggests that the tail is a bit heavy. So I have added a bit more nose weight, and now it's a bit more balanced. And you can also down elevator, so you can take the elevator and point it downwards so that the plane will naturally want to nose down. Today happened to be an awfully windy day, and my plane really struggled to fly, so definitely choose a wind-free day. I therefore stood by the wall of the building, and my plane was actually flying pretty smooth. I then decided to take a step further and go to a bigger space, hoping the wind wouldn't bother me, and I had so much fun. After some trials, I noticed that the glider was actually drifting towards my left, so the plane had that natural tendency to shift towards the left, and that's when we can actually do something about it. You can either throw the plane in this manner, so the plane will naturally adjust and fly straighter. But what you can also do is to add a little rudder towards the right side because the plane was drifting towards the left. And what this rudder will do is adjust the plane's yaw control to fly more straight. I'm just using a piece of tape, 1 to 2 pieces of tape to hold the rudder. You don't really have to use any glue because this is all part of the trial. So adding this rudder, there's a bit of an angle towards the right. This is gonna help your plane drift towards the right a lot more. And in this case, there's too much rudder. So what we can do in this situation is to reduce the angle of the rudder. So what I'm now gonna do, take off the tape and reduce the angle just a little bit so there's only a little bit of angle towards the right. Now with these rudder adjustments, the plane is now flying much more straight and true, and I'm absolutely pleased with the performance of this glider. If your nose is pitching too much high or low, you can also play around with the elevator to fix the pitch control as well. Do have a friend or two to throw this plane around because it's so much fun when you throw a glider around with a bunch of friends. If you found any value in this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more related content. You guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.